Welcome to SORMAG's Writers Cafe, where we share the real writer's life over a cup of friendship sprinkled with laughter and wisdom. My name is LaShonda Hoffman, and I'm your host for today. Our topic today, making the transition to the full-time writer. Every writer dreams of being a full-time writer. Our guests today, Makasha Dorsey and Eva Brock, are doing just that. Welcome, ladies. Please take a moment to introduce yourself. We'll start with Eva.
Good evening. I'm Eva Brock. I write under the pseudonym E.J. Brock. I have a 29-book spiritual paranormal series that I started writing 7 years ago, right after I, quote-unquote, retired.
Okay.
Here I come. Hi, my name is Makasha Dorsey. I'm a freelance writer and public relations consultant. I'm the author of First Family Secrets, the first book in the Church House series.
All right. Well, my first question is, how did you know it was time to make that transition? I know Eva was getting ready to retire, but did you know you wanted to go into full-time writing too?
Well, actually, I wasn't getting ready to retire. In 2010, when the market fell, it was just expedient for them to let me go.
Okay.
Because they could hire 3 people for what they paid me, basically, is what they said. And I was right at the doorway of being eligible for Social Security, but not quite there yet. And I didn't know which step I was going to take. I wasn't really sure that I wanted to be shackled and chained by someone else's dream again. I'd spent 40 years making somebody else's dream come true. And in honesty, the Lord spoke to me and he said, I have an assignment for you. I want you to write this story, not for church folks, but for my lost sheep that the church has made feel like they're not worthy. And from that point on, it was a calling. It really was a calling on my life. It was a struggle. I think the first year I produced 4 books and no sales. But I just kept persevering because I knew this is what I wanted to do. This is what I had been directed to do. And then it was just like all of a sudden the gateways opened and people started getting interested in my type of writing because I don't really fit in anybody's genre. But after I got used to the concept, it was very easy to do. That's how I was able to do 29 books in the Spirit Made series.
Wow. Every time you say how many books you have, I'll be like, wow. That's just amazing.
And there are only 2 novellas. I did a novella for Christmas, this past Christmas, and then I did a book that's outside of my series. It's called In the Quarters of My Mind. Mm-hmm. Those are the only 2 novellas. The rest of them are full 300, 400, almost 500-page books. And every time I say I'm going to cut the series off, my readers are like, nah, you can't do that.
That's wonderful. I think that's great. That was my question I was going to ask you. I guess the readers just want more and more. And some writers get tired of that, but I guess you like, okay, I'm going to give it to them. So that's great.
You know what happened was I had made up my mind after Lord God told me the direction that I should go. I said I was going to write 7 books because 7 is the number of completion in the eyesight of God. And when I wrote the 7th one, I was like, now I need to figure out which way I'm going because now I got this writing thing down pat and I got a bug, okay? And the Spirit revealed to me, I didn't tell you to stop. 8 is a new beginning. So I said, all righty then. and I started writing book 8, and I just finished book 30. It's in editing now. And I put out a book in, I put out a book in the middle of March, and my readers are already hounding me for the next book. But God said they would.
I'm going to let Makasha speak, and then I'll go into my questions. Go ahead, Makasha.
Oh, no, I'm enjoying this.
I know. What was your experience, Makasha?
For me, I was more or less forced into into freelance, and I've always freelanced on the side because I enjoy writing, and most of my work functions in corporate America had a lot to do with writing. So for me, it was more of I was in a bad situation at work, was being harassed by the guy who owned the company that I worked for, and I ended up quitting. And in the process, I had no other choice but to do something. So I take my role as a helpmeet in my family very seriously. I take Proverbs 31 very seriously.
Yes.
And I've always believed that for the most part, my responsibility was for my children and to manage my home. And in order to do that the way that I felt necessary for my family, it was to go on ahead and establish a business. While I only have one full-length novel, I participated in anthologies. I write for magazines and what have you from time to time. But my income comes a little bit differently. Most of my writing income comes from business writing, public relations, ad writing, copy for websites, product descriptions, processes. That's where the bulk of my income. So I make more money as a writer than I do as an author.
That's all
good.
right.
Because most writers don't realize that they have to have a couple of streams of income to do this full time. Unless you're really selling all those books. And I'll talk about that too. I have questions on that. But I want to know: do you ladies have a schedule? How do you maintain? When you go to work, you have certain things you have to do for your job and stuff. How do you maintain your schedule so you are writing and you're not just goofing off every day?
Well, for me, one of the first things I had to learn how to do was to say no, not only to friends and family, but to my husband, because, of course, a lot of the times for him, he's at home. Hey, babe, can you go on my computer and do this? Can you watch this for me before I come home? And I had to say, you know what? My work hours are from 9 to 1. If I were getting up driving to go somewhere to work, it wouldn't be expected for me to wash clothes during the day or do laundry or make dinner in the middle of the day or run errands. So I had to set time aside. And for me, I've always been a morning worker. I'm not one of those writers who stay up all night. I'm usually preparing for bed, around 9:30, and I'm usually asleep no later than 10:30. So for me, I usually wake up most mornings anytime between 4:30 and 5:30. And during that time, I, check my email, spend a little time with God, that kind of thing. And then I get my family ready. But I'm a planner, too, so a lot of my meal planning, cooking, clothes for the week, all of that stuff is done on Sundays because I know that I can get caught up into taking care of home items. But my work day, as far as my clients and my family know, from 9 to 1, don't bother Makasha. I don't answer my phone. I don't even respond to a lot of email during those times. I check my email about 3 times a day, and because it can be a time suck. So from 9 to 1, I'm working. That's when I work.
I like that. I like having a set hours and telling them to respect that. And I think I like that.
I'm totally different. I'm totally different. I have always been insomniac. I'm always up late hours of the night. But here's the thing. When I was working, making somebody else's dream come true, I worked 12, 14, 16 hours a day. So I figured I could put just as much energy into making my own dream come true. And I basically sit at my computer nonstop. I had 3 laptops. And before I got with Dropbox, I used an extended hard drive. And I would go from my bedroom to the dining room to my office just to get a little variation. But I would literally work 16 hours a day. My arms actually locked. I had to go to chiropractor to get them to unlock my arms. I couldn't straighten them out. They were stuck in the typing position. And it does help that I don't have any small children. I don't have a spouse. And the people who live in my house, everybody's self-sufficient. And I just write. That's all I do is write. And with it being novels, mine is a little different than hers because mine are novels and it's a series. So if I'm not writing, I'm reading books that are already published for continuity because I may mention something in book 2, and I have done this. I mentioned something in book 5, nothing more than a paragraph. By the time I got to book 17, I wrote a whole book around that one paragraph. So I'm constantly in this writing mode, and it never fails that when I do lay down to sleep, God is always talking to me. You need to say this, you need to say that. And I find myself jumping back up at 1, 2 o'clock in the morning because if I sleep on it, I'll forget it. So there is no time frame for me. My older sister, as a matter of fact, she calls me once a week. I call it driving Miss Daisy. But I know that she's just trying to get me out the house. Because otherwise I'm just like, you've heard where authors take a couple of months and go out into the woods and write their best novel. That's the way I am. I get so focused, I forget to comb my hair. And I'll be like, I didn't comb my hair for 2 days because I'm caught up in these novels. And that's how it works for me.
And when do you take a break? Because you need a break. If your arms are getting stiff, you writing too much. You just deep into it. So
I'm telling you.
Do you take break? Do you take vacation?
30 books in 7 years.
Yes, that's a lot of writing.
And it's not junk. It's not junk. I promise you, it's not junk.
Well, I have a book on awards, so I know somebody out there loving it. So.
Oh yeah, I won those 4 awards. I wasn't expecting that, but it was in the 7th year because the Lord had told me. He said, "If you write, I'll provide the readers." And true to His word, in the 7th year, almost to the day that I started writing, that's when I won the awards. And that 7 again is the perfect number in the eyesight of God. And for me, it was like He was saying, well done. Mm-hmm. I told you I'd take care of it, yes. And like I said, mine's I label mine as paranormal, but only because what's out of the norm besides God? Mm. I don't do werewolves and vampires and all that stuff. These are Nephilim angels. And I have men that really get a kick out of it because they said, I'm not writing about the black man being the pimp or the drug dealer. I put him back at the head of the family where God intended for him to be. And that first book, Brock's Redemption, because you both know that we are these men's redemption, right? Mm-hmm. Anyway, Brock's Redemption is still my #1 seller. I get new readers, and it's word of mouth. Word of mouth. Readers tell friends. I have daughters who tell mothers, mothers who tell sisters. I have mothers, grandmothers, and daughters and sisters. They're all reading this series together because it's a good old-fashioned love story, and it puts God at the head of the family and the black man. But there is no rest. There is absolutely no rest for me.
Wow.
Well, sometimes the muse come like that, and you just got to go. You just got to go with it.
You have to go.
Flow.
Yes, and for me, mine is a little bit different than yours because I like I said, most of my income comes from freelance writing, where I work my work hours from 9 to 1. I do a writing jag. My husband and I both do writing jags every night. We do about 45 minutes to an hour before we go to bed each night. So, and of course, if I get in a place where I really need to write, I take the time for my personal projects. But I don't have the I won't say I don't have the time because we all have the same 24 hours. Is that my 24 hours is filled with family, and I have a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I run a business so that I can pull in, my business is writing, but not writing for me. But you're where I want to be, writing for me.
But you know what? I was so impressed with you when you said a minute ago that you take your role as helpmeet seriously. In my last book, the Archangel Michael told the woman he was getting ready to marry this couple, and he said, God did not create Eve to be a kept woman. He means for you to be a helpmeet in all things. In all things. I don't know where we got this housewife from, because the women in the Bible worked to help support their men and their family. That's what the helpmeet means. And I was so blessed that you said that.
Well, because I think we've created a patriarchy as far as homes go, and we can even see it in romance novels. These men, they ride up on their white horses and they rescue these damsels in distress, when God really didn't create the woman or the man to be rescued by anyone other than Jesus. So as a writer, I try to have a very broad worldview, and I also use writing to educate, especially my personal writing when I have an opportunity to write magazine articles and personal essays.
Right.
One of the things that I've really been focused on in my writing as of late is how the church has bought into a secular relationship between a husband and wife. If you look at Proverbs 31, you cover the gamut on the male-female relationship, what's expected as a wife, but Proverbs 31 doesn't mention sex at all, and the church would have you think that women should just have sex all the time to keep their husbands, when if we're modeling women off of Proverbs 31, which is what a lot of my writing is based on, you don't find that. What you find are a full relationships in the Bible. And, of course, sex is important, but I try to write from a Christian worldview where I apply the Bible when I write.
Absolutely. But, see, I go one further, and I say that is an American indoctrination.
Yes.
That's American indoctrination. Our people came from Africa, and those women worked. Those women worked. We lost ourselves when we came here. We lost more than just our names. We lost more than just our language. We lost who we are when we were brought here in shackles and chains, and we adapted to their way of thinking. Now, they want to have us think that they were the one that introduced us to God, baby boo. Y'all just as wrong as y'all can be. You need to go back and read that scripture all over again. And that's what I wrote in my book, In the Quarters of My Mind, where they want to whitewash the Bible, and they've indoctrinated into us that Jesus was blonde-haired, blue-eyed. You're right. Okay. But that's why the Bible said, my people perish because of lack of knowledge, because you don't know where you came from. You don't know that you came from the line of Judah. And that's what I try to teach in my writing. And actually the book that won for Best Author, Best Paranormal Book, and the hero and the angel and his love interest won for hero and heroine. And that's because I explained in that book, I had that archangel explain the whole creation. People were buying 5 and 6 copies of this book to give to people they know, because we've been whitewashed. We've been whitewashed out of it.
Oh, man, we didn't went to church today, huh? All right, let's get to the, I wanted to talk to Eva. She said something about your first year you wrote 4 books and you didn't sell anything. And I think I like that your honesty, because a lot of times people tell you about becoming a full-time writer, and they don't tell you the bad parts about it. They just tell you the good things. And I think
it was a struggle.
That, just because you going full-time doesn't mean you're going to sell books. So
listen, it's not a one-hit hook, and it's not instant success. And my several friends said, why do you put so much emphasis in this? You've got an income coming in now. Why are you doing this? Go ahead, I guess, go out to the pastures, for lack of a better phrase, grow old in grace. And I'm like, I am growing old in grace. Now I'm about my Father's business. I'm right back to that Bible. But the first year and the second year, I probably didn't make $500 for the whole year. And 1 or 2 people would inbox me, oh, I love your book. But 1 or 2 people don't pay the house note. So when you make that transition, my advice is to make sure that you have a savings that you can live off of. That applies with anything in business. What is it, the first 5 years you're operating in the red? In any business that you do, you're operating in the red. Well, those businesses that are operating in the red, they still got money either coming in or they've gone into their savings. So I suggest that before you do this, take this on full time, make sure that you have been studious and are good stewards of your finances. And if you think this is the way you want to go, start saving now for it. Start 10% of your salary, put aside, and leave it. Just say, I'm going to do this for 3 years, and that money will grow. And then you'll be able to step out on your own and not have to worry about house note and how you go eat and pay your bills. Like I said, it was different for me because I was blessed with an income to come in. But those first 3 or 4 years, there was no movement. But I kept persevering at it because I knew that eventually it would come around, and I didn't expect it to jump right away. You know what I'm saying?
I think that a lot of people go into, they quit their job, and they think they're going to be bestsellers, and then they get kind of aggravated because sometimes if you don't have that nest set aside, you have to go back to work. and they resent that. And so I like that you said to, make sure you have a safety net on the side. Just
right, because I knew a young man, and he started out writing spiritual warfare, and he reached out to me because mine's is spiritual warfare, and he said that his book just wasn't picking up. And I'm like, you just published it 6 months ago. But he was anxious, so he jumped from one genre to another, trying to find something that would jump off fast for him. Nothing is going to jump off fast. And he eventually just gave up. He's like, it's just not working. But you can't go into it with that mindset that very few people write a novel that jumps right off the shelf. And they tell me that the Harry Potter novels sit there for about 5 or 6 years before they were noticed.
I'm glad you said that because, as you know, I do promotion. And so when people come to me, instead of coming to me when they first come out with their book, they come to me, maybe they've been out 6 or 7 months, and they're frustrated because they aren't selling. They have the mentality, if I write it, they will come. And I tell them the only way readers are going to come because they already know you're there. If they don't know you're there, then no, they're gonna go right past you because right now you're invisible. Nobody sees you. Nobody knows who you are. So
that's absolutely right.
Dream in 6 months, but this is a long haul thing. It might take you 16 years to become that best-selling author that you thought you were going to be.
That's
absolutely
right.
I think that people have to, talk to other people and see what's going on. Most people, when I talk to people about transitioning to full-time, most of them suggest you have at least 7 books that's getting royalties coming in. And then, you have your little nest egg. So you got money that's constantly coming in. You got one book,
right.
You go, I'm quitting my job tomorrow because this is going to be a bestseller.
No. It doesn't work like that.
Because you probably sell one book that month, and that's it. And then what happens then? How are you going to feed your children? How are you going to pay your house note, that car note?
How are you going to feed yourself?
Right, but you also have to look at it from the perspective of being aware of what goes on in the world. John Grisham still goes and does lecture series at colleges and universities. Maya Angelou, up until she passed, she was still working for universities. So
right.
these are some very notable authors, award-winning authors, but they understand the importance of having more than one stream of income. We've been so indoctrinated that we get up, we go work a 9 to 5, and that's it.
And that's it. No part-time, nothing else, just that.
Nothing else. But for me, ever since I started working when I was in college, I always did some sort of freelance writing, whether it was editing papers, whether it was writing. I've even written obituaries.
Now, I do that. That, and as a matter of fact, I write poetry.
Obituary business, excuse me? I
yes.
did that for a living for a couple of years. Good
right, but a lot of people don't realize that even most of the people I know, they work, and they do something on the side. You need more than one stream of income. So, and my suggestion for people who decide, you know what, I want to write full-time, or I want to be I'm not even at the point where I can be a full-time author. I can be a full-time writer, but I'm not in a position to be a full-time author because for me, it just hasn't, I don't think I've taken the time to even focus for that to be my full-time income. But then again, I look at the other authors.
What do I keep hearing muted? I keep hearing muted and unmuted. Are you all hearing anything?
No, I don't. But we have the if we look at the way we do our incomes, is that we can look at and go, hey, I'm getting ready to go. I want to be a full-time writer. I want to be a full-time author. How do I do this? yes, it's good to have a nest egg, but it's also good to start preparing to do some side work to even build business, because you're going to need another stream of revenue as an author. If
That's true.
Stephen King, Steven Spielberg, John Grisham, any author you can think of, Rashonda Tate Billingsley, multiple streams of income. So you have to be smart about how you approach life when you're with whether it's writing or whether it's starting a lawn care company. You have to have more than one stream of income to survive.
That is so true, especially in this business.
You know the guy, I can't think of his name. You guys will call his name, who wrote A Time to Kill.
That's John Grisham.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Grisham?
Yes.
You know, nobody would take that book. He's an attorney. Nobody would take that book. He had to self-publish it. And it sat out there for the longest because they said America wasn't ready for a black man getting away with killing two white guys. But he had a daytime job. And then all of a sudden, at the appropriate time, that book blew up.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't wholly depend on, I'm going to write a book and that's all I'm going to do. You're right. You've got to have something else, even if it's just part-time, some kind of way to make your ends meet. And I asked, I believe on your page, one of the authors, how do you work a full-time job and write? Because I tell you right now, if I hadn't have gotten laid off, I never would have written the first book because I was giving them too many hours. And what she said, I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I dedicate myself, I guess, from 4 to 6 to write. But evidently she needs the full-time job because you got to pay bills. I'm blessed that I don't have that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the thing of it is, and with moving full-time for writing or doing anything, even if you have a full-time job, you have to plan, whether it's planning your finances or planning what you're going to do with those 24 hours in a day.
Right.
I'm very active on social media. I share how I plan my week, so how I handle my weekend so that I can enjoy a good week. If I didn't get all of my grocery shopping done on the weekend and prepare most of my meals on Sundays and know what we're going to eat, when, where, and how, and put lunches together, I wouldn't have time to do anything during the week, not with having a busy schedule as a person who is self-employed. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm active at my church. I volunteer at my boys' school. I spend time with my nieces and nephews because I moved back to the metro area. I have friends locally. So I have to be very decided about what I'm going to do with my schedule. Even when I worked the 9 to 5, my last job, I was the manager of 2 intermodal transportation companies. And it was a very demanding job, but what I did was I knew what my work hours were, and I got everything done. I had my phone on me if we had an emergency, but I planned so that we have to get out of crisis management. A lot of the times we get off work, we have no clue what we're going to have for dinner, so we either waste money spending on fast food or we waste a lot of time in the kitchen because we haven't planned properly. So not only do we have to plan our finances to write, we have to plan our lives. Decide what time you're going to go to the gym. I drop my boys off at 7:30, and I go straight to the gym. And I get on the treadmill for 30 minutes, and then I'm back home, showered, and at my desk before 9. Those are the types. You have to plan. You have to know what you're doing with every hour. You have to treat every hour in the day like it is money.
Gold.
Time is currency. And what you do with it, what I'm doing with these few minutes that I'm on the phone will impact me weeks from now. So we have to decide, I love television. I'm into TV writing courses right now. The issue is that I have to decide if me spending 3 hours on a Thursday night is productive for me to reach my goal. I love Shonda Rhimes, but she got her money right now. She has her
David,
TV show.
don't you know that's right? I tell my readers all the time, I don't watch TV. I couldn't tell you, I couldn't name one of her titles. Because, like you said, she got hers. I learned that from all those years working, that I gave too much of myself to somebody else. And I was in logistics. I'm a logistician. And those long, baby, long hours managing ain't no joke here. Mm-hmm. It ain't no joke. I did that for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And I got old and weary and not useful anymore. Got hurt on the job. And they said they could hire 3 people to make what they paid me. Mm-hmm. So, and it's a cutthroat industry. Mm-hmm. But you're right. Time is money. And that's, even when I go to book signings, I take my laptop with me, like I just got back from Atlanta, going to the RT, and I took my laptop with me, because on the downtime, you know what I'm doing? I'm writing. I'm writing or rewriting what I've already written.
And that goes to self-management, because you take the initiative to do the things that you need to do for yourself. A lot of the time you spend time on time management, when in actuality, and I can't stand for people to say you got the same 24 hours in a day as Beyonce. No, I don't, because Beyonce probably ain't cooking 3 meals a day.
Thank you.
You know, she has help. She has help. My 24 hours don't even work out like some of my girlfriends do, because some of my girlfriends have the benefit of retired parents who come and live with them and help them take care of their homes. Mm-hmm. I don't have that luxury.
And
my
their
mom
children.
is married. And exactly. So for me, when people say what you have to do is sit down and realistically plan for your life so that you can be successful in your own way, and it comes down to self-management. Because think about it, how many times do you write in your planner what you're going to do that day and it doesn't get done?
It doesn't pan out, because there's always a situation.
Always a situation, and sometimes it's
we vacillate. Yes. Absolutely. And see, I could never pinpoint and say, I'm only going to write for 4, or just say I'm only going to write 8 hours a day. That doesn't work for me, because I guarantee you at 7 hours and 58 minutes, a fantastic thought will come.
Yes.
It happens to me every time. I have gone to sleep like, man, this just hit me, and I've got to get back up, because I know if I don't, I'm going to lose it. And I thought, go ahead, dear.
Well, for you, I mean, that's a little bit different, because you're spending your time on creative writing with your own products and books. For me, I had to make a decision, because what ended up happening for me is that I was spending so much time pursuing other people's dreams. Because, again, not that 9 to 1 time, I'm wearing the hat of a freelance writer, publicist, ghostwriting for other people and editing for other people. So I had to put that in a box. I had to put that in a place where, you know what, this is what brings
it don't infringe on your time.
My home. So that it doesn't infringe on my time. Now, when creativity hits, I have to get up. I keep my phone and a tablet next to my bed. I'm fortunately married to somebody who can sleep through anything. So I can wake up in the middle of the night and write, and if I stay in the bed, he doesn't even notice that I'm up with lights on. But the minute I get up and go to my desk, why are you gone? So it's one of those. I can stay in the bed and write all night. It don't bother him. The minute I get up and go to my desk, he's like, where are you? Where'd you go? So
because he can feel the dent. Lift it up.
Yeah, I guess so. But for the creative things, yes, I totally agree. You have to hit when creation.
I say the spirit moves.
Yes.
When the spirit moves, you got to get up and do it. I thought there for a while. I said, you know what? I'm too old to be making a transition. I'm moving from logistician to becoming an author. And even though God told me to write, I didn't see how it was possible that I could do that. And then he reminded me that you're also a theologian. So take what you know. Take what you know and the life experiences that you've lived and twist it into a tale. And that is what I have done. A lot of things that I write in my books are things that I have actually lived. So the passion comes out because it's like I digress, and I'm back in that moment when certain events happened. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. One particular event, my mother's youngest brother, I don't know where you guys live. Back in the 60s, there used to be a gang in Chicago called the Blackstone Rangers. And my mother's youngest brother ran with the Rangers. He was no good thug, okay? And God called him into the ministry while he was out there running. And I just had to write that story from his point of view. And that book jumped off the shelf like nobody's business. And it was his life story. So you take what you know, you change the names to protect the innocent, although I didn't change his name. I didn't change his name, and he knew that I was doing it. I told him, I said, Floyd, I'm writing a story. This next book is about you, your days running with the Blackstone Rangers. He said, you better tell the truth and tell them how God delivered me. I wrote the last word of that book, and my uncle died the next day.
Wow.
And that broke my heart. But I got his story out.
Yeah.
I was able to tell. And his younger kids, because he had something like 50 kids, and his youngest kids was mad. And the older one said, you know, Cousin Eva told the truth. Because they bought the book. They're like, this was Dad through and through. This is his life. But I wrote it as a fiction. Because the angels were involved. I added the angels in it. You know? And that's what I tell people who say, I want to be an author. Use what you know. Take life experiences and twist it. My father taught us when we were little how to count, and the way he did it was with peanuts. As many peanuts as you could count, that's how many you could eat. And I wrapped a story in it. My twin sister and I were the youngest. We could only count to 3. And guess what? We only got 3 peanuts. He said, if you want more, learn how to count.
Wow.
And our tears didn't move him either. He like, you learn how to count, people can't take your money.
Right.
And it's 10 of us, and them bigger sisters and brothers were eating just bowls of peanuts, and we couldn't count beyond 3, and that's all we got.
Oh, hey, I bet you learned how to count.
Baby, all of us did. I've got 2 sisters and a brother that are CPAs. because Dad said it was important that you knew how to count. And my mother said, y'all going to learn how to read. So even in the summertime, we had to go to the library and get 3 or 4 books because you're going to read all summer long. I added that in the story. You take your life lessons and wrap a story around them, and people will feel the passion.
And you can't write unless you live. That's one of the things that I've been that much more aware of over the past few years, is that a lot of the times when you're writing, you tend to go, see, you've lived a life. I
lived a long life.
Couple of weeks. You've lived a long life, but think about nowadays. Think about somebody 40. I'll be 41 in a few weeks, and
well, happy birthday.
I lived. Thank you. I lived when I was younger, but becoming a mom, you kind of lose yourself in the role, and you
right.
lose
But
yourself
you
in
lived
the work.
before that, though, right?
Right. But you have to be willing to go back and be honest and draw off of that. I've been spending a lot of time reading the New Yorker, the Atlantic, and a lot of other literary magazines that hold both essays and fiction. And one of the things that I'm noticing more and more of is that some of the best writers, most of the best writers, they draw off of their personal experiences. Everyone who knows John Grisham back home in Mississippi pretty much said he was a mediocre attorney. That's what they said.
Right.
But the thing about it is he knows the law, and he's a dynamic.
And he uses it, doesn't he?
And he uses it.
Absolutely. And when you said you lived, when you said you lived, back in the day, didn't no grass grow under my feet here. I came home long enough to take a shower and get ready for work again. And I write in my books, there was a day when my week consisted of 6 Saturdays and a Sunday. Now, keep in mind, I was a church musician, too. And I'd come out of them nightclubs, come home and shower, and wear that organ out Sunday morning.
Been there, done that. I didn't say the organ, but I worked in leadership, and believe me, same here.
And that's all right, because God...
I turned 50 in March, and I remember when I first met Beverly Jenkins, my daughter was like 2, so I probably was 31, 32 years old, and I was an aspiring writer and wanted to be published, and it wasn't happening. And she said, "Baby, you haven't lived yet." She said, "Talk to me when you're in your 40s." And she said, "And then, you'll have a lot of stuff that you can write about." And I remember, I was like, "Beverly, 40? That's a long way." But when I turned 40, I was like, man, she was right, because I was just becoming a mom. I was just learning about being a mom. That was a whole new world to me, And now at 50, I'm like, ooh, I got so much stuff to talk about. Because in my 20s, I was in the Navy. I was wild and loose. In my 30s, I was a mama. In my 40s, I was, coming back to LaShonda. Now I am LaShonda, and I'm ready to talk about it, So,
but when you think about it, when you think about it, you know who Iceberg? Well, Iceberg Slim. Have you ever read any of his books?
Oh, many years ago.
It's his life.
Mhm.
And they sell because the passion, because you find yourself in that moment again, I'm telling you. Mm-hmm. And even if somebody tries to mimic or copy, they can't pull it off because they don't have the passion.
Right.
It's the passion that you have because you've lived it. This is your life.
Mhm. Oh, I like that. Mm-hmm. That is true.
Mhm. And you have to be passionate about what you write about. I've been going back listening to, I love Audible, LaShonda. Mm-hmm. And I listen to, whenever I find myself in a writing slump, I don't think I've ever had writer's block But when I've been in a writing slump, I'll go back and I'll listen to On Writing by Stephen King, simply because it awakens something that's there where he talks about writing, but it's a very autobiographical book, and you realize that, like she mentioned a few minutes ago, you draw on your experiences. The young woman from Carrie is a compilation of two girls Stephen King went to high school with.
Really?
Yes. So it's those types of things where you go back. And I find it in my own writing when I go back and I look at stuff, I go, hey, this is where that came from. And more so recently, because I don't know if it's being 40 or what, you become a lot more honest about things. You're more willing to tell the truth. And I don't know if it's a new boldness.
Then you don't feel like it is a new boldness. You have nothing to lose. You know, I'm a grown blank. You know? That's for real. That's for real. I don't care. And that's why I told.
Now you don't have to bite your tongue. You're like, you know what?
You don't have to bite your tongue. I done paved my way. I done paid my dues. Now, one other thing that I do is that, like with my main character, Brock, and his love interest, Jody, they are actually my mother and father's name. So there's a emotional connection there. Jody's parents' name is Snow Anna and Hezekiah Walker. And in real life, those were my mother, Jody's parents. So I used all of my deceased loved ones' names as characters in my books, and that gave me an emotional attachment to them. And it's a way to deal with not seeing them anymore and memorializing them.
That's true. It's a good idea.
I actually use my cousin's name, so that's kind of neat that you do that. I thought it was kind of strange at first, and then I was like, no, because to me that's my tribute to them too. So I like that.
That's your tribute. That's your tribute to them. And thank God I ran out of names by the time I got to like book 12 or 13, and then my readers were like, make me a character, make me a character. So a lot of my books are my readers' names. My characters in my books.
My characters tell me who they are. Every character I've ever written, I've dreamed about.
And they tell you their name.
They tell me their names. The first character, and I just started writing more about them. We do Chanel Bacon, Pache Spates, and Jennifer Cossier. We write snaps, and we write really short. Sometimes we'll do 79-word stories. A story that's 79 words, that's it. But we write a lot of 1,000-word stories, and I'm a stickler. I won't go over. My stories have to be 1,000 words on the
Really?
Yes. That's how I am. They cheat a little. But I'm a stickler for rules. But one of the characters that I've been dreaming about since I was 3 or 4 years old, it's a white monkey. And I've dreamed about this monkey since I was 3 or 4 years old. He lived in a fireplace. But I didn't learn his name until he didn't give me his name until years later. And the first story of me having him was a 79-word short. But I didn't write it until I was 36.
Wow.
Really?
But I've been dreaming about this character since I was 3 or 4 years old.
Now, see, my characters do just the opposite. When my readers, who I don't really know other than in my group, Brock Addict, most of them I've never met, and they tell me, make me a character. Once I use their name, then that name tells me who they are. And one of them in particular, I made her a horse trainer. And she was like, oh, my God, how did you know that I have an affinity for horses. I didn't have a clue because she never told me. I don't know her other than on Facebook. And she's like, I love them. And she goes into details about what she does with horses. How would I know? But once I get the name, the character tells me who they are. And that's a spirit connection, don't you think?
I think that's the spirit. That's the spirit with you. Connected.
That's why my books are a spirit-made romance. Mm-hmm. That's why my series is a spirit-made romance. And then, I saw someone sent me a clipping from a book that Tony Evans wrote. And I think he wrote it in 2014. Tony Evans is that minister in Dallas.
Yes,
and he wrote a book, You Ought Not Be Looking for Your Soulmate, but Your Spirit Mate. And I'm like, now, I started writing my series about 4 years before he did. I wonder if he read my book.
Got inspired.
And he got inspired because I had never heard of a spirit mate before. The Spirit told me that. Make it a spirit-mate romance.
I like that.
Because it's more than so.
Get your books now. I'm really intrigued. The angels and all that.
I'll tell you what.
Paranormal, and I hadn't heard anything else about it. But that's what happens. You need to find out what.
But see, let me tell you what happened. Let me give you another testimony. When I got through writing Brock's Redemption, and I've been a reader all my life, so I knew that there were different genres. But while I was writing, it didn't register with me. So when I go to Amazon to try to upload this book, they're telling me to pick a genre. And I'm like, I can't call it Christian fiction because Christians would eat me up. These books, they would eat me up because there's so cookie cutter to me. They're clean, and my books aren't vulgar, but they aren't clean. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And so I couldn't use that. I couldn't use interracial, even though most of my couples are interracial. I couldn't use that because my series is so much more than that, and that's a dog wagging her own tail. Okay. I'll give you that. I couldn't do African American because I have all the races. Because in God there's neither Jew nor Greek. So I couldn't write all one race without including the other races. So I'm like, Lord, I don't fit in anybody's box. And just like you hear my voice right now, he said, neither do I. And I like, all righty then. And the only reason I picked paranormal was because there's nothing out of the paranormal just means out of the norm. Mm-hmm. We've gotten used to paranormal meaning vampires and werewolves and shapeshifters. What's more out of the norm than God? He said, let there be, and there was. The first person to vanquish was Jesus when they were after him, even with the boys on the road to Emmaus when he went home with them and they realized who he was. The Bible said he vanished. So I said, okay, I'm going to call this paranormal. And I have a couple of readers that said they were so scared to read it. And one girl said, it took me about 2 months to build up my nerves because everybody kept saying, you got to read this, you got to read this. She said it took me 2 months to build up my nerve, and it took me 2 months to read 17 books.
I know that for me, that was my leery. I was thinking, when I think of paranormal, I'm thinking it's going to be scary or something like that. And I hadn't heard anything that it was paranormal. Nobody said anything about it. If they had said angels, I would have got it immediately. But,
I'll tell you what it's based on.
Or anything. They just kept saying you just got to read it. That's all I would hear. You got to read it.
I tell you what it's based on. In Genesis, the Bible says, there came a day when the sons of man saw the daughters of God and thought they were fair and took as many wives as they choose. The offsprings of that unholy union was called Nephilim. Nephilim means the rejects. That's what the book is based on. And if you go to Jude, and it talks about the angels who kept not their first estate, there is a place for them in darkness. But that wasn't the place for the Nephilim. That was the place for the fallen angels. If you've ever heard of the book of Enoch, Enoch says him and God came into an agreement, came into a covenant together. And Enoch was able to persuade God that the Nephilim didn't ask to be born any more so than any of mankind did. Because God was getting ready to flood the earth and wipe them out. But God allowed Enoch to have his way. And you know the Bible says Enoch just walked away and he wasn't seen anymore. When you go over to Jude, Jude says we never would have known if Enoch hadn't have told us. God allowed Enoch to take all the Nephilim and they went into an alternate realm. They went into an alternate realm until the year and so many days when the water receded. And then they were allowed to come back. Some chose, in my series, some chose to be under the Archangel Michael's leadership and fight against the ones who chose to be the devil's own. And so they war back and forth for the protection of God so loved humanity. And that's what my whole series is about. And God promised them that if they were faithful, that he would give them one woman that would be their spirit mate for life. And this is 5,000 years later. They've been faithful all this time, and they're starting to meet their women. Now, the devil, they don't know who their women are, but the devil does. And they're attacking the women, coming and going. And these Nephilim angels are stepping up, and they doing some kind of warring. I'm telling you, you get hooked on it.
I gotta read. I love paranormal. I read the vampires. I read werewolves. I read everybody. Of course, I read.
I do like paranormal too.
So I'm gonna definitely have to check those out.
I don't like scary paranormal. I was a Twilight girl. I read the Twilight, but I love Stephen King movies, but I never read his books. Cujo chased me one year, and I was like, no, I can't do that, because I like to read at night, and my books come inside my dreams, and I don't want to be dreaming.
Cujo wasn't nothing compared to it. Do you hear me? It be so bad.
So I didn't read it.
I don't like clowns today. You hear me? I slept with every light on in my house for a week, and I don't know what I was thinking.
I have my romance. But your book sounds great.
But I'm eclectic.
I know I got to go get off the phone and go download.
The first one is called Brock's Redemption. And like I said, we know that we are these men's redemption, right? So you got to know his redemption was his spirit mate, Jody May.
Okay. I have really enjoyed this conversation. We done talked about all kinds of stuff. They got to look.
I know.
How to quit the job and help on how to write the book and help on being a good wife. And, hey, this was a good podcast to bring back for the first time. All right.
Now you're going to. Let me ask you. You're going to edit this a little bit, though, aren't you?
No, I don't edit. It's all fresh, just like sitting at a cafe.
Lord have mercy. I'm embarrassed now. But that's all right, because you know what? If you know the truth.
Yeah, being a part of the SORMAG Writers Cafe, how can we get in contact with you, Eva? How can we get in contact with you online and offline?
Okay, not only am I on Facebook, of course, but my website is www.spiritmateromance.com. I'm also on LinkedIn, Goodreads, Twitter. My Twitter handle is @BrockAddicts.
Okay.
At the end of all of my books, I put my email address, evajbrock@yahoo. And most of my readers have my cell phone number, but I don't give that out until we've at least conversed. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't want a lot of widows. You don't want to just put your number. You know, I don't put my phone number on my business cards, because you don't never know whose hands they're going to fall into.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but I'm reachable on the website and the email address and on any of those social media sites.
All right. Makasha?
My website address is makashadorsey.com, MAKASHADORSEY. On Twitter and Pinterest, I am at Makasha, MAKASHA, and on Instagram, I'm Makasha D. And you can find my author page on Facebook at Makasha Dorsey. And, of course, on Amazon, Goodreads, Makasha Dorsey as well. And I have a contact form on my website. If you ever want to email me, it's makasha@makashadorsey.com. And I like to hear from people. I like to talk. And I like to help people, too. So if you have a question about anything, even if it's just you want to vent about your writing space, and I love seeing people's writing spaces, let me know. Send out a line, and I talk back.
All right. I want to thank our listeners for taking time to listen to this podcast. Please feel free to leave a review and let me know what you think of this episode. Please share the podcast with your friends. If you have a topic that you want us to discuss in the cafe, send your suggestions to lchwriter@gmail.com. We are looking for sponsors for the new podcast. So if you're interested in being a sponsor, contact me. This is LaShonda Hoffman, and I will see you all on the next.